So now we're going to work on what happens with negative constant terms. So first, let's review. If we have x plus 5 times x plus 6, we're going to practice distribution. So x times x is x squared. X times 6 would be plus 6x. X times 5 would be plus 5x. And 5 times 6 would be plus 30. So standard form here, we would have x squared. 5 plus 6 would be plus 11 of the x terms, and then plus 30. So to move backwards now, we are going to look for factors of 30 that sum together to make 13. So if I'm thinking about that, I know that if we just have 1x squared, my first terms have to be x and x. And then if I think of two numbers that multiply together to be 30, that make 13. Well, 1 and 30 would add to be 31. 2 and 15 would add to be 17. But 3 and 10, well, 3 times 10 is 30, and 3 plus 10 is 13. So we could put in plus 3 and plus 10. So now what we're going to do is use the area model to work in the other direction. So if I had x and negative 3, I'm writing this a little smaller, and x and negative 6. X times x is x squared. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. Negative 3 times x is minus 3x. Negative 6 times negative 3 would be plus 18. Sorry, that's a little hard to read. So as I pull that out, it's going to be x squared. Negative 3x plus negative 6x is minus 9x. And then here that is positive 18. So now what we're going to do is use this area model to work backwards. So here, if I have all of standard form, I know there's going to be 4 pieces. This x squared piece goes here. This 18 piece goes here. We need to figure out how to break up these x terms so that they add together to be negative 11. So on the outside here, this has to be x and x. I can go here and put in my x and my x piece. Now here, if I have two numbers and they add to be negative, but when I multiply them, they're positive, both of these have to be negative again. So if I'm thinking about what two numbers multiply to 18 but add to 11, that has to be 9 and 2. So this would be minus 9 and minus 2, because negative 9 times x is negative 9x here. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. When I add those, negative 2x plus negative 9x makes negative 11x. So to keep working here, these are in some ways alike what we've seen, but in some ways different. So here, x times x will make x squared. So I'm going to just draw an arrow. X times negative 3 makes minus 3x. Here, 12 times x makes plus 12x. Here, 12 times negative 3 makes minus 36. So this would be x squared plus negative 3x plus 12x makes plus 9x, and then minus 36. So now, though, if we're doing the same thing where we have x squared minus 9x and minus 36, and we're working backwards. So we need factors of negative 36 that add together to be negative 9. So if I'm looking at this, drawing an area model, we have x squared, which would be x and x, negative 36, and we need factors of negative 36 that add together to be negative 9. So the negative number has to be bigger, so we're going to have one negative, one positive. And then if I think about that, well, I could use, again, 12 and 3, but I would switch them. So this would be minus 12 here, and this would be plus 3, because this would make minus 12x, this would make plus 3x, and negative 12x plus 3x makes negative 9x. So down here, that would make x minus 12, and here that would make x plus 3. So now if we have x squared minus 35x minus 36, well, in looking at that, we have definitely in the first pieces, x and x. One is going to be negative and one's going to be positive. So if I'm thinking about that, to make a difference that big, I need 36 and 1. And the larger one is negative, so this has to be negative 36. And then this would have to be positive 1, because we would have x squared plus x minus 36x, which would make minus 35x, and then minus 36. So our last piece here, if we have x squared plus 35x minus 36, this again would be x and x. But if I need factors of negative 36 that add together to be positive 35, again, we're going to have a positive and a negative. But we need the positive number to be bigger. And if I'm looking at that to make 35, I would have to have positive 36 and negative 1. The reason x times x makes my x squared, but we would have negative 1x, but plus 36x would make my positive 35x. Then here, 36 times negative 1 would make negative 36. So some ways that these are the same, the area model works in the same way. But here, when you have a negative number for your constant, so the negative constant term made a factored form that had a positive and a negative.